Hello, my friends, and welcome. Okay, so I am in my new place, and today we are going to be talking about how to reconstruct the unconscious mind. What I'm doing right now is I kind of screwed up a little bit because I'm distracted. I'm having all this input. I'm living in a new place. I'm listening to the neighbor's television and him partying and the people outside, and it's the Thunder Wizard does not like noise, so it's causing me some issues here. In any case, what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be talking about reconstructing the unconscious. And this can be applied in any situation, but it's more easily applied during challenging transition periods, loss, but the thing is, whenever you're carrying any kind of wound in you, you have this. And what I'm learning about that, as you know, those of you who know, I recently lost my fiance to cancer just a little over 3 weeks ago, and if you've been following me, I've shared all about that. I'm not going to get into all of that unless it's comes up and it's pertinent. But what I'm finding out is that this place of emptiness, this place of transition, this could really create a lifelong wound. And so what I'm learning is that what I have right now is a real opportunity to completely reconstruct my unconscious mind. And so what I want to share with you is that having that ability, being able to reconstruct your unconscious, whether you're having to go through a crisis that's happening to you, or whether or not you live with some wounds, because it's the same thing. If you're carrying wounds in you from, years ago or past life, and this is always the case with anybody who has any kind of victim mentality. If you're carrying any kind of victim mentality, you believe aliens are doing it to you, the government is doing it to you, your parents did it to you, you live in a matrix and there are archons who are sucking the life out of you, reptilians, whatever it is. If you think somebody's doing it to you on whatever level, that is a victim mentality. We all have them, and this is part of the reason why we're here, is to learn how to let go of that. So if you're carrying any wound or if you're going through anything, you are in one of those periods where you have the ability to change what is happening to you at any given point in time. But more importantly, you have the opportunity to reconstruct your unconscious. Your unconscious is your programming. It is the base programming. Software is what comes in, and you play the games, but you have to have, the base programming of the computer in order to function, right? So that's what your unconscious is. It's like the base program. And so when you go through these kinds of transition periods, challenging periods, or when you go through like what I'm going through, or if you have a wound, if you're constantly carrying a wound with you, that is an old transitional period that did not get resolved. And what ended up happening is you're carrying it with you. It's like having a virus in your hard drive. But if you are able to see either the tragedy that's happening to you or the old wound that you're experiencing as an opportunity to be in the void, to be in emptiness, if you have an opportunity to do, if you have an opportunity to understand that, then you have the ability to take that and recreate your entire programming, which will mean you will be able to take whatever limitations that you have, because our limitations is what creates our universe. You're going to be able to take whatever limitations that you have and redraw those lines, because what's happening is that your limitations are trying to be destroyed. And the universe is saying, hey, we want to rewrite the programming so that you can evolve. If you hold on to it, then you end up creating a wound. You aren't able to reprogram yourself, and then you stay, not only are you limited, but now it's like you're limping along. So I'm going to talk about that. What I want to do is I want to find my little introduction thing that I wanted to play. See, is it in here? Yeah, I don't know what I did with it. I'm so upset because I put time and effort into those things. Anyway, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and do some ads here. And then we'll come back and I will take questions if there are any. Quite good questions will be about how the three selves work, how you use the three selves, how they correspond, and this process of going through tragedy and seeing it as a time of being in the void, where you can allow yourself to go through the death and then reconstruct yourself on, consciously reconstruct yourself. Not passively let things program you, because that's what will happen. If you go through tragedy or if you have wounds in you and you are just waiting for things to resolve themselves, then what ends up happening at best is that you let other things and other people reprogram your beliefs, which sets your limitations, which creates your reality. And so we'll talk about that where appropriate. I'll share where I'm at and the experiences that I'm having. So anyway, we'll go ahead. I'll be back in about minute 20. Maybe I'll find what I'm looking for. It's frustrating me right now. Okay, but I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I was not able to find what I was looking for, so I get to be further distracted and frustrated. So I guess let me address something that I find to be very important. I was sharing about this with somebody, a client I was talking to a couple of days ago, or yesterday or something. And what came up was the challenge of how to be spiritual and how to have human feelings. Because we are programmed and we're taught, especially the whole New Age thing, but the new, I bag on New Age spirituality, but it's only a product of our modern society. So this is part of our modern society, which wants us to downplay and deny all of our feelings, unless we're happy. For instance, women. It is expected of women in our society to always be cheerful, to always be happy, to always be cute. When the men are talking, you bring them coffee and cake and cookies, and you talk about, oh, what a wonderful day it is, and if it starts going in a bad place, you go, but you know what? I'm just so happy to be alive, and right? That's true for everybody. For men, it's when you reach difficulty, it's you toughen up and be a man and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and don't let anything bother you. The reality is that in my experience and what I am experiencing right now is that the greatest power that I have to create my life is directly connected to this incredibly difficult, painful experience that I'm going through. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, going off about that. I have people and friends that I do that with. Just my ego needs to. All right, there's my little moonstone right there. So what I have become aware of is that I am in this place of complete transformation where my hard drive is being wiped. And, again, this is because the loss of my fiance. Connected with that, we've already talked about it, what happens when you're very bonded on an emotional level with a partner. Your whole identity becomes connected to them. But then, of course, there are all the plans that you have, what you're going to do with your life. Everything that I've been doing, and I've been totally unaware of this, she has been connected to that. So that means now, every time I make a choice, every time I do something, almost any action that I take, I have to confront in my head the connection to her that used to be there. And then, in case you've ever gone through this kind of loss, that's why you're continuously in pain. That's why you're continuously mourning what's happening. It's different from any kind of mourning I've experienced before. It's different than any kind of loss that I've experienced. It's a continual thing. My hard drive is continuously, the little spinning wheel is trying to figure out what to do, because everything I think, everything I do, all the choices I make are directly connected to my bonding with her. And she's not here anymore. She's somewhere else, and she's not even the same person anymore. Who knows what she is now. But what it is challenging, it is difficult. So what I'm not here telling you is that I'm smiling through it and I figured it out and it's all okay, and you know what, and just think positive. No, this is horrific. Horrific. And at the same time, I'm consciously aware that when I experience the pain, what I'm doing is I'm holding myself as best I can and saying, this is an opportunity to recreate yourself. So one of the things that has changed dramatically since then, it started to happen right as she was getting ready to leave. And then when she left, everything shifted for me on a financial level and on a business level. And all kinds of stuff happened. And one of the things that happened is I ended up in this place that I'm at now, which is, I'll just play a little clip for you. Those of you have been asking, show us your new place, show us your new place. Well, here it is. I'm still moving in, but I went and took some video today, so this is what I now have. It's absolutely, for those that don't know me, the surfing shaman, surfing is absolutely the most important thing in my life. There is one beach that I've come to love, which is here in Southern California in Los Angeles County. My favorite, it's in the middle of, the LA, South LA area, so there's a lot of people around, but once I'm on that beach, there's all this emptiness and this beauty, and some of the best most consistent and best surfing, in the world. I don't know. There are a lot of, places that have better perfect breaks and all that. But in terms of consistency, being able to pick up your board and go surfing every day and have there be some good waves and sometimes some amazing waves, there's no place better than this. So here's the little film of where I'm at.
This is the Thunder Wizard's new home. This is his front yard. Heading over here to the left, on a clear day you can see all the way to Catalina. And over here to the right, empty beach for miles. And then if we go in this direction, see that yellow house right up there, the second level? That is my apartment. I wake up every day, you can look out there, and right in front of me is easily some of the best surfing in Southern California. My new place. Love it.
So there it is. And I'm sitting in here right now, and it's a Saturday night, but I'm so uncomfortable. I'm not used to the noises here. I still have it, and I've been slowly moving back and forth. And I got to be honest with you, sometimes I just go back and sleep at the other place because the transition, all the changes, the sounds. I'm having to listen to people outside my window. It's a beach town. People are walking around. There's bars up the street and all that. So I got to listen to that. I have to deal with a neighbor. It's a duplex, so there's a guy beneath me. I got to listen to him. I got to get used to those noises. And this is all tough enough because I like privacy and quiet, but I'm in this incredibly raw state. I mean, I'm not even in my comfy chair right now. I'm in a very uncomfortable chair. But I want to talk to you guys about this, and I want to answer some questions. So let's talk about the void. So in Vedic astrology, you guys have heard me talk about it. I have videos on it. You can watch it. There's videos about Rahu. And Rahu is the aspect of what brings us into manifestation. Rahu is the north node of the moon. And I've shared about the symbolism of Rahu and Ketu. I won't get into all that. But bottom line is that the north node of the moon is the head of the serpent, the head of the dragon. And Rahu is a serpent whose head was cut off. So the head is Rahu, and he is the aspect of you, all of your desires, all of your ambition. Those are on the positive. On the negative is your addiction, your obsessions. If Rahu is stimulated in a negative way, you can become a thief, you can become a murderer, you can become a criminal. If Rahu is stimulated in a positive way, it'll make you very ambitious and be able to be successful. It can even make you very ambitious in being loving and healing. I have a friend, somebody who got a reading from me, but she has Rahu in such a place that she has a very strong desire to be healing. So Rahu can make you a healer. He can make you a psychic. He can make you, president. I've talked about, what's his name? Donald Trump. Donald Trump has Rahu in the 10th house in, I forget what sign it's in, but that's why he's who he is, because he has this obsession to succeed. Now, the other side of that is Ketu. Ketu is the tail of the serpent. Ketu is the body of the snake. Rahu's head was cut off, and so his body has no head to it. So he has no desires, he has no awareness, he has no sight. He has all feeling. He's nothing but feeling. And he doesn't care. So Rahu in your chart, Rahu and Ketu will always be directly opposite each other. Rahu will represent what you want, what brought you into manifestation, and what you're constantly trying to achieve that you'll never be satisfied with. There'll never be enough of it. I have Rahu in the 11th house, which makes me, very desirous to be successful. And so I'm constantly trying to improve and think how I can improve this, what I do and my readings and all that. But no matter what success I achieve, it's never enough. I've just gone through a huge success shift. It's still not enough. That's Rahu. Ketu, on the other hand, he says, listen, I've already accomplished this in a past life. Ketu is in my 5th house, which, among other things, means children. I have no desire for children. I've never had children. In fact, the thought of having children sounds like the most ridiculous thing I can imagine anybody doing. Why would anybody want to do that? But that's because I've done it in a past life. I've mastered it. I don't need it in this life. I've also mastered mantra. I've mastered ritual. That's a lot of things in the 5th house. I do it. I love doing it. But music, all that, I can pick up just about any musical instrument and play it. But I don't have any desire to be a musician, unless it's part of something that's part of my spiritual practice. Other than that, that's where I have Ketu. But the other aspect of Ketu is Ketu comes in and destroys wherever he is. Rahu destroys as well, but he destroys for a different reason. Rahu destroys out of his hunger, his endless hunger. He'll consume something until there's nothing left to consume. But Ketu is different. Ketu says, I'm not interested in illusion. I'm not interested in anything that doesn't exist. In fact, from Ketu's perspective, since he doesn't have a head, nothing exists. Everything is empty. He wants to go to the truth, and the truth is that the only thing that exists is this eternal energy. You know, you can call it God, you can call it Odin, you can call it Shiva, you can call it whatever you want. Ketu says that's the only thing that exists. I want to get to the truth of that, and I will destroy everything in order to get to it. So if you imagine Rahu and Ketu being kind of like Godzilla, you know, Rahu would be the head of Godzilla as he's walking in, breathing out fire, burning things up, and, you know, because he's the fire represents his passion, his obsession, his addiction. And then as he's coming through, you know, then the tail will come around and destroy the buildings that are all burned to a crisp. That's what Ketu does. Ketu comes in and let's destroy this. You've already mastered this. You've gotten everything you want. Now let's just wipe everything clean and get to the truth. So this is what happens when you go through these kinds of losses. What's happening on a microsecond level, by the way, this is true for anybody has gone through any kind of mourning. This is what you can expect, is that what happens is that when you know, I pick up this bottle right here that I'm drinking. She gave this to me. Lisa gave this to me. So boom, my mind goes, Lisa, oh, she's not there. And then Rahu goes crazy. Rahu says, I want her back. I want to see her. You know, my desire is to see her. And then I'm forced to deal with the reality she's gone. She's never coming back. Not in this lifetime. And so then I have an opportunity to then rebuild that. And so I'm walking around, and it may sound cold, but I'm walking around constantly telling myself, Lisa is gone. She has changed. Lisa has gone. She has changed. And I'm doing that because I am letting Ketu go in and destroy that part of me. And it is destroying me. It feels like there's, you know, like 20% of me left and 80% of me is just gone. That's why I'm so fatigued. It's getting a little bit better, but the fatigue is just unbearable sometimes. You know, I can barely do anything, and then I get so fatigued, all I can do is just lie down. And then I have to force myself to get up and do stuff. So this is Ketu. So I want to talk about this void, this emptiness. And I shared about Gununga Gap in the Patreon video. So let's talk about Gununga Gap a little bit. So before the universe was created, there was Gununga Gap. There was the yawning chasm. Even in the Abrahamic tradition, which I believe is built upon the pre-monotheist Hebrew polytheism, which, by the way, was there. We'll talk about that another time. Even there, they talk about you know, the emptiness. You know, that you know, before there was anything, there was just this emptiness. You find this everywhere. You find this in Taoism as well. That before there was anything, there was just this void, this emptiness. The emptiness is not empty, meaning like there's nothing there. It is pure potential. And it's worse than just being like in an empty room, you know, like being someplace empty and you're the only one there. It's worse than that. It's being in some place that is 100% filled with pure power. You know, the way science looks at it is that before the Big Bang, there was an infinitesimally small area that had all of the mass of the universe in it, in an infinitesimally small area. That's Gununga Gap. It's full of everything. It's incredibly powerful. And then it explodes, and then it starts to become something. So in the thunder wheel here, when you look at the thunder wheel, Gununga Gap is the state just before we get to the mist home. The mist home is the waters of life, but the waters of life are toxic, and they're toxic because they haven't completely come into manifestation. So if you were to dive into the mist world with your body, you know, the Niflheim in your body, it would tear you apart because it's still too close to Gununga Gap. But it's just now coming into manifestation, and it's just like it's all this potential that's getting ready to manifest. And then as we go clockwise around the thunder wheel, then things start to manifest and become more dense until they then come apart again. That's the whole cycle of life. I've talked about that before. So now it's easy for me to do this because I'm forced to do it. Every single solitary second of my existence, if I'm not just dead asleep. That's the only time I get peace is when I'm asleep. But, after about, half an hour after when I wake up, then all of a sudden it hits me and then I'm back into it again. My mind is trying so hard to figure things out, what to do next. And sometimes just being in the grocery store, I'm having to buy all kinds of new stuff because I'm moving into a new place. And so sometimes I'll realize I've been sitting in an aisle staring at things for 5 or 10 minutes because I just can't make a decision. And I just go into this place of like I'm panicking and I just can't move. It's because that my brain's trying to figure out what to do, because no matter what I'm doing, I'm either making a decision to destroy my hopes and my dreams, my relationship, my connection to my fiance, or it's, unconsciously planning things out. When I see Lisa again, we're going to do this, and she likes that, and she likes that kind of, whatever it is, underarm deodorant, she's not alive. It's every single thing that I do. But the power that I am aware of is that this is a time where I can consciously recreate everything. And my point about this is, now you guys get to watch, because I'm going to report to you in real time what's happening. You're already seeing it. I already showed you that. Just to give you an understanding, this would have been completely impossible for me to do just a few months ago. I would not have had the resources, just would not have been possible. And it is possible for me to do this now. In fact, it's if things continue as they are, which I think they will, this will be very easy life for me to maintain. But anyway, so I could babble on and on, but the point I want to work on here is, and any questions you have surrounding how to destroy the limitations in your unconscious, how to use either tragedy that you're having right now or any wounds that you're carrying with you, unresolved tragedy, how to use that to get to this place of the void, which is horrific. It's not an easy place to go. But if you're able to face it and then consciously choose to recreate yourself, then you end up having access to a lot more power. So let's see if there are any questions going on here. I got to get myself together here. Okay, let's see. I've got everything all backwards here because I am so turned around. Literally turned around in my new place. Okay, so let's see. Any questions here? So lots of people, by the way, again, the way to best communicate with me is to leave a question. The more comments that I have to shift through, it just takes that much longer for me to get to a question and answer it. So let's take a look here. Okay, so let's see here. What kind of questions do we have? I don't see any questions. Here's one. Are you of the view the Ascension will be a blending, I think you mean of the spiritual with the material, the merging of opposites, the masculine and feminine? My view is that that is always happening. Somebody asked me about this. Somebody said, are we in a diverging timeline? And I said, that's always happening. There's every single moment you are constantly this is what I'm well aware of. I just explained the process that right now I have it right in front of me. Everything I do, I go to pick up my phone. Is there a text from Lisa? Oh, that's right, I deleted her number. She doesn't exist. That's something that is changing me on a fundamental level, radically changing me. But it happens no matter where we are. We just have this illusion that we're not in this void all the time because we have this program. We have this constant self-talk that gives us this feeling of uniformity that we can understand the world. But once that's taken away from us, then we're aware that every single solitary moment, there is a constant merging. There is a continuous creation of the universe. a continuous Big Bang, if you will. That's how much power is happening. This is something I experienced when I first started training in spirit fighting. It destroyed me on so many levels, but the power that I was experiencing was unbelievable. But in order to stay tapped into that power, I had to be in the void all the time. So I had to really learn how to let that destroy my ego and destroy my attachments. Very painful process. So those of you watching this, you want to be powerful, you want to get a lot of energy, you want to be able to do things and levitate or whatever. You can do it, but in order to do it, you are going to have to live in that place of the void. This is why, you know, traditionally when we hear about yogis and Taoist monks and, you know, shamans who have these abilities, they live alone. The reason why they live alone in the wilderness is because they want to be somewhere where they have the least amount of attachments, because the more that you attach to things and people, the more you start to create this false reality that there's this uniformity to the universe, and that will keep you limited. Now that's fine, because you have to do that in order to function, but if you want to be, you know, big time super shaman, you're going to have to go into that emptiness and you're going to have to live there. I'm being forced to go through it right now. I've been here before, so I understand it. But many of us don't. Those of you that are carrying wounds with you don't know that that's what happened. You went through some kind of a transformational experience that you perceived as a loss or you perceived as a tragedy. And because you didn't, either somebody didn't teach you or you didn't have the wherewithal, listen, I went through it too. Instead of going to that emptiness and letting your limitations expand, you tried to recreate the old limitations, which creates like a fractured program. And then you're broken. You're kind of walking around, the walking wounded. The point I'm trying to make is that we are all infinite. All of us. We all have this power of infinity with us at all times. You have the ability to reach that. But in order to get there, you've got to be comfortable going to the void. So sometimes we have to do practices that will help us. Celestial Qigong is one of them, the Qigong practices. You know, and everybody that works with me, and a lot of people, those of you who have worked with me for a while, you can attest to this, that you go into this thinking, oh, these are really fun, wow, the energy feels really good, and then after a while, your whole universe starts coming apart. That's when a lot of people leave. But then if you're able to stay with me, then I can say to you, hey, you're being taken apart, a shamanic initiation. Let's put you back together and have your boundaries expanded. That's my job. That's why you need to have a teacher. You can't do this alone. You have to have somebody who's been there, who can look at you and say, you're coming apart at the seams, or no, you're lost in your illusion. And then help you put yourself back together on an unconscious level, just with larger limitations, so you can create more and do more things. Okay? So the ascension is always happening. It's not something that's going to, you know, land on us at some point. Again, looking for the questions. Do you consider Ketu exalted in Sagittarius or Scorpio? You know, I don't know exactly where Ketu is exalted. I have Ketu in Sagittarius, and, you know, I'm told he's exalted there. He would be also powerful in Scorpio because Ketu likes Mars. So Mars and Ketu get along. So Ketu would be powerful in Scorpio as well. Again, I'm looking for the questions. I'm glad everybody has opinions. I'm not interested in those, but I'm glad you have them. Okay. Stream is super choppy, says Susie Yoten's wife. That's not a good thing. Okay, what is a blue flame in esoteric sciences? I think that's when somebody lights a fart. Isn't that what that is? Okay, so I don't see any more questions here. We'll do some ads and we'll come back. Again, questions about reconstructing yourself, questions about the three selves, questions about how to go through tragedy, how to reconstruct yourself with your wounds, and to understand that your wounds are really opportunities of this emptiness, this void, where you have unlimited power to recreate yourself. That's what I want to talk about. But, you know, ask any questions you have and I'll answer them. Okay, so I had to put some pillows on my chair. Holy crap! I gotta bring my chair. Get a new chair. This chair is killing me. All right. So let's see here if there's been any questions since I've been gone. What are my thoughts on Sylvia Browne? My thoughts on Sylvia Browne is that she's dead. That's what I know. There's a lot of people who have some negative things. I don't know her well enough. I don't really do that whole psychic thing, even though I believe in that. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about Sylvia Browne. Can we reconstruct the subliminal unconscious programs? That's exactly what I'm talking about. Subliminal, everything is when you're born. Here's the deal: when you're born, from the moment that you're born, your mind is being programmed, and it's being programmed by everything around you. But where we get the greatest programming comes from the unspoken, unconscious feelings and attitudes and beliefs of the people around us, your mother and your father, and then anybody else who's around you. This is really important to understand. The unconscious means you're not aware of it, but from the universe's perspective, you are responsible for it. And one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest mistakes that everybody makes is that because they're not aware of it, they make the decision that they're not responsible. I can't help it. I had a friend of mine who said something that I thought was really powerful. He was talking about showing up late, like showing up late to work or late to, whatever. And he says, if you do it more than once, you did it on purpose. Now, he wasn't saying that you consciously did it on purpose. He was saying, whether he realized it or not, that on an unconscious level, you were making the decision. So anybody listening to me, if you're chronically late, you are doing that on purpose. You're doing it deliberately. You may not be doing it consciously, meaning you may not understand that you're doing it. Just know that there's a program running in your unconscious mind where, for whatever reason, your unconscious mind has decided it's in your best interest to always be late. So even consciously, you're trying to get to work on time, but you can't. And I made the decision, I don't know what happened, but the line was really long, or the traffic or whatever. What happened is that on an unconscious level, you have this program that tells you if you're late, you will whatever. Whatever your unconscious, wherever you got the idea that being late was in your best interest. It became a pattern and it's stuck. Until you're able to understand what you're gaining from that, you won't be able to change that. So this is why it's really important to do things like meditation and all that kind of stuff, because that will bring it up to the surface. It's also really important to look at the things you're frightened of, look at the things that anger you, look at the things that that you want to avoid, that annoy you, because those are the things that your unconscious mind is seeking to protect. And the way it protects it is by throwing up the screen of, I'm bored with that, or that angers me, or that frightens me, or whatever it is. So I forget what the question was that started that, but can we deconstruct the subliminal unconscious programs? Yeah, you can deconstruct it, but it's going to take some work. And it's going to, again, this is one of the things that I give you. So for those of you that work with me, or those of you if you haven't worked with me yet, I'm not here to be a therapist. It may seem like I am, because a lot of times I'm going to be asking you therapy-like questions, and we're going to be talking about things, and I'm going to be helping you overcome some issues and some problems, and it'll sound like I'm therapizing you, but that's not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I am bringing to your consciousness what it is that you believe you are gaining by your experience. Let me see if I can come up with another example. So I talked about being late. So let's, here's, I guess, kind of a superficial potential example. So let's say I've dated women like this. I'm sure men do it too, but I dated women like this. They're always late. Let's go and I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock and then we'll blah, 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 right? And so you tell them a week in advance, I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock. But might as well have said 7:30 or 7:45 because they got to spend another 30 or 45 minutes getting ready. From my perspective, they could have said, hey, listen, I won't be ready until 7:30 or 7:45, but it doesn't matter. No matter where you set the time, they're always late. So here's a potential, what the unconscious does. At some point, again, this is a mythical person. I'm not trying to take anybody's, judge anybody here. This mythical woman at some point came to realize or learned from her mother or somebody that if you're late, it's a way to keep somebody close to you. So it's sort of like, it's a way to have control. You can control what's happening, and it is, those of you who are chronically late, you are holding people hostage, whether it's your work environment or whether it's a social environment, because people end up waiting around for you. The end result is that you end up getting a lot of attention, even if it's negative attention and people are mad at you, people are thinking about you. So on the unconscious level, at some point, this mythical person got the understanding that I will get love or attention or I will feel in control if I'm late. Now, that doesn't happen consciously. Consciously, this person might be thinking, okay, I really have to hurry. Why am I always so late? So what you need to do is at some point become aware of what it is when there's something like that that is irrational, right? That's irrational. And okay, I don't know why I keep doing that, but I keep doing that. Then you stop and you say, what am I gaining from it? And then you have to really dig deep. And you really have to be willing to go and find some embarrassing, painful stuff. For somebody to realize, why I'm late? It's because I feel like I'm in control and I like the attention. And oh my God, that's so embarrassing. But now that it's on a conscious level, then you can consciously and deliberately change that pattern. And then your limitations are... Now that can work with anything. But some of them, I've shared about me that for, much of my life I was mediocre at best. I might be like I was an actor, and everybody would talk about what a brilliant actor I was, but I would always seemingly sabotage my career. And I didn't know how or why I was doing it until I became aware that as a little kid growing up, my father was very insecure, even though he was a brilliant scientist. To this day, he's one of the, he built satellites, the space race, all that kind of stuff. But he was very insecure, and he was insecure if I did anything or was successful or outstanding in any way. It made him uncomfortable. And as a little kid, I realized, I didn't know this, I was doing this consciously, but looking back on it, I realized what I did was, in order to keep my dad happy and get his love and approval, I would stay just mediocre. And then after I moved out and was on my own and really trying to make it big in life and be successful, I kept running into why am I always so, why was I always so far less successful than I wanted to be? Why did I always have such little money compared to what I wanted? And then I realized why. That knowledge in and of itself didn't fix it. Then I had to start taking risks. Every time that I was thrust in a situation where I had to risk, it was very frightening and painful, I had to choose to take the risk. But every time I took that risk, what my experience was on an unconscious level, on an emotional level, was that I was telling my dad to go screw himself, and I was going to not get his love, even though he died 20 years ago. This is how the unconscious mind works. It's very irrational. Now, the whole point of that, as I'm saying, is that every time I take those risks and I push past my fear, my limitations in my unconscious go a little further, and I have to go through a death every time. These videos, when I first started making these videos, and every time I've changed the format of these videos, I've had to go through that same kind of fear. And but this is what's working. So in order to gain this kind of power, just on a spiritual level, you want to gain the power to levitate, you want to gain the power to change reality, you're going to have to do this same kind of thing on things that seem totally meaningless. Because what's happening is that on an unconscious level, that's your hard drive. You only have so much, space. You only have a terabyte of free hard drive space. If that terabyte is filled up with a lot of energy going towards holding on to these unconscious patterns and beliefs, you don't have any more energy to do anything else. Like right now, I'm fatigued. I'm fatigued all the time because my hard drive is constantly trying to figure out how do I live without my fiance. Every single moment, my unconscious is trying to figure that out. That's taking all of my energy. So do you see how this works? Now, I can't do anything about this particular situation. But what you can do something about is wounds that you carry with you. If you carry a wound with you from a previous tragedy that you weren't either aware or weren't able to reconstruct yourself, then what ends up happening is that all of that RAM, all of that space on your hard drive is going to keeping these false beliefs. There are archons that are stealing my soul. The devil is out to get me. Aliens are controlling the world. The politicians and the elites won't let me do that. That's taking a huge amount of energy. And just from a practical perspective, from a spiritual perspective, you're not going to be able to accomplish anything if all of your energy is going to that. Okay? So I hope I explained that. I babbled on a lot, but let's see if there's any questions out there. So let me look back here a little bit. All right. Okay, let me see here. All right, so I'm looking for the questions. I think I answered that one. I'm sorry, somebody says the stream is super choppy. It looks okay on my end. So, again, this is a brand new setup here, so who knows what's going on. But it looks like it's happening on my end, okay. Okay, I'm confused again. What's happening? All right. What is your best life advice? That's a huge question. My best life advice is to watch all of my videos and to buy all of my products and to work with me all the time. That's my best life advice. Actually, my best life advice is, and I say this, the first thing you have to do to work with me or to follow my path or to read my books, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify all of the fear-based belief systems that you have and let go of them. Anything that puts you in a place where somebody's doing it to you, somebody has power over you, somebody, something, they, God, whomever, that is the most debilitating thing there is. So my best life advice for you is to search yourself and see where do you have fear-based belief systems, and then eradicate them, because then you'll be able to understand how to rule the universe, basically, how to be infinite, how to be a god. Okay, all right. How does one shift out of so-called spiritual plateaus? Well, I don't know what that means. A spiritual plateau, does that mean you're bored? Does that mean you feel stuck? Is that a euphemism for saying you're stuck? How can we use this phase best when recognizing it? Well, that's a big question. There's something behind that. So nobody's ever really just on a spiritual plateau and bored. You're either happy or you're not. So if by being on a spiritual plateau means you're unhappy, then I would need to talk to you and I would want to find out, and I would ask some questions and find out why you're unhappy. Because again, I could be wrong, but spiritual plateau sounds kind of like that new age, euphemism, denying the fact that you're bored and unhappy. So I would have to talk to you to be able to answer that question. And then once I knew what the issue was, then I would be able to tell you how to come out of that. But just, saying it's a spiritual plateau, it's just too broad of a question. I would only be giving you a platitude, and it wouldn't have any practical meaning to you. What are my thoughts on chemtrail spraying? I don't follow that. That would fall into the category of belief systems that are fear-based. They're chemtrails and they're doing this. I don't know if they are or not. Maybe they are. The point is that all the time that you're spending worrying about those in power, we don't even know who they are, the military complex, we don't know who they are. They're out there and they're doing it to us. Maybe they are. I'm just saying all the time that you put into believing that stuff is time that can be used in living on the beach and surfing and getting the most out of your life, or whatever that is for you. So unless you know what that is and you know how to do something about it, if it's out of your control, just forget about it. Just let it go. There's nothing you can do about it anyway. And again, from the shamanic perspective, everything in your external reality is your own creation. So if there are people spraying chemicals in the atmosphere, guess what? You created that. You made that happen. You made that happen because some part of you wants to live in a universe where people are doing that to you. And so you created it. Now, you may not like that, but the first step out of that is to acknowledge you create everything. And no matter what you're going through, you know, I've created this. I could easily say, and just start being such a victim about how this could happen, and the whatever. I could go on about food. I could go on about pollution. I could go on about what gave my fiance cancer, and you know, the medical community, and they're not giving us the, you know, I could go on. I could spend the rest of my life being victimized by that. Or I could understand that I created that. I created the scenario where I met her. I knew she had cancer when I met her. I created the scenario in a previous life that she and I decided we were going to come together, and we knew that this would happen. Because what's the point of believing anything else? Let me ask you a question. Which universe do you want to live in? Do you want to live in a universe where you're powerless and people have the ability to do things to you? Or do you want to live in a universe where you have control and that your main function is to learn how it is you're creating everything? Yeah, I get it. I don't even know how I'm creating everything. But I am, and so are you. And it's okay to say I don't know how I'm doing it, but I first take responsibility for everything. And now I want to know how I do it and how I can improve upon that. That's what I like to do with this. Okay. So let's see. Leah Kingbird says, is the void anything similar to being out of sorts from normal hustle and bustle of society? I don't know. Again, I would need to know what that means to you, being out of sorts. You know, out of sorts from normal hustle and bustle. I don't know what that means. That could mean that you're a shaman and you don't vibe with that because you're on a different plane. It could mean that you have psychological, fear-based issues about living with other people. I would have to talk to you to find out more. So I could say yes. Yes, that's the void, but I don't know you well enough to answer that question. So it could be one of those. When are you going to have a live chat with Sethicus Boza of Black Earth Productions? We are later this month. He has something scheduled. We're going to have a conference call, video, something, and then we're going to put it up on our channels. So very soon. I don't remember the exact date, but it's in my iPad, which is on the other side of the room. And my place is so big now, I actually have to walk. In my other place, I go like this, and I just reach. Everything is like within 5 feet in my other place. Okay. Susie Yoten's wife. What planet would you recommend working with to help rebuild the wound to a better outcome? That, again, depends on your chart. This is why you have to have a reading with me. I don't know if you have had a reading with me or not. For instance, you know, if I were to go just by the rules, right? Just go by what it says in the book. Jupiter is the most healing, the most generous, is said to be the best planet. So, but that's not necessarily true. I have Jupiter in my 8th house, retrograde, which means that if I work with Jupiter, Jupiter could bring me to the heights of heaven or bring me, you know, and the reality is that when Jupiter periods have come and when I've worked with Jupiter, I've gone through major transformation, because the 8th house is sudden transformation, but it's also death. You know, it's life and death. So I keep a healthy distance from Jupiter because Jupiter will be sure to do exactly that. So I'd have to look at your chart. If I don't know what your chart is, you know, and everybody's different. Like for me, Mars is my best friend. Mars, you know, if in doubt, Mars will always take care of me. Now, Mars in the 8th house could cause accidents, could cause, dismemberment. So some people, the last thing you want to do is pray to Mars. See what I mean? So to answer your question, I'd have to look at your chart. Go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. This is why I do these things. This is why I do these charts, because I tried for years trying to figure this out with all the general information, even from Vedic astrologers. It wasn't until that I said, you know what, I'm going to figure this out myself, because that's, again, in my chart it says that that's how my life is. I have to learn by first, learning what doesn't work. That's in my chart. So I don't know what's in your chart. If you work with me, I'll let you know what planets want to help you. I'll let you know what planets, actually I don't really care telling you about the planets you need to stay away from, because all you need to worry about is the planets that want to help you. Just focus on them and you'll be fine. Okay. Lindsay Rogers, my question about your lower self, your dwarves. Does it mean anything on the number of dwarves you have created? Say you have one or many. What does it say about that person or desires good? Well, my understanding about dwarves, which is always changing, is that it doesn't matter how many you have. You create dwarves every time you have an intense emotional experience. Every time you have, dwarves are more than, dwarves can be earth spirits. A lot of people have, in times past, our ancestors would have helper spirits around the house. Those could be projections. I don't know what they call it in magic. They call it, I forget what they call them. They have a word for them, but that's what they are. So it doesn't matter how many you have. The only thing that matters is your unconscious aligned. So if your unconscious is aligned, your dwarves, no matter how many or how powerful they are, they will listen to the elves. That's what you want. The three selves have to be aligned. The upper self talks directly to the lower self, directly to the unconscious mind. And the unconscious and the subconscious work together. They communicate to the soul. The soul makes a decision about what it wants to do or what it doesn't want to do, and then gives a command, and then the dwarves go out and do whatever they're supposed to do. So you can have one dwarf, you can have a billion, it doesn't matter. What matters is whether or not things are aligned, and then you can create dwarves, and there's ways to do that. Anyway, so that's my thought on that. That's a much deeper subject I probably have to do. But thank you for that question, Lindsay. That's a great question. Okay. Black Earth Productions, the backdrop is awesome. Thank you. I've been looking for an excuse to find a wall to put that up on, so in my new place I finally find it. Okay. Obi-Wan says, how would you deal with repression, i.e. something you forgot that is manifesting unknowingly? Well, obviously if you're unconscious of it, you're not aware of it, it's hard to deal with. The way that it happens is through pain and difficulty and embarrassment, when you act out, when you do something stupid. Another way is to listen to what people tell you. So in my experience, if you have two unrelated people who don't know each other and they both tell you the same thing, that's the universe trying to tell you that something's up, especially if you resist it. Have you ever run across people like this that will say, well, that's their problem if they don't like that I do this. No, that's not their problem. That's your problem. If 10 people keep telling you that they don't like that you chew with your mouth open, it means that you're a disgusting eater, and you really need to be aware that there are other people around, and why are you choosing to make so much noise? Some people are like that. Like the people that ride those Harleys and then make them super, super loud, or drive the cars that are super, super loud that you can hear for 5 miles away. That's somebody who's afraid that if you don't hear them, that they'll stop existing. Now, they don't know that on a conscious level, but on an unconscious level, they are deathly afraid if you don't know about them, they'll cease to exist, right? So it would take them being willing to listen to people say, man, your motorcycle's really loud. Why do you have to do that? And then they'll go, yeah, you know what? But they won't. They probably won't. No, that's my hog, man. So the thing is, you've got to be willing to look past your pride. And you've got to be willing to look at those things. Again, this is why you have to have a teacher, because a teacher will call you on it. Your friends may or may not, your family may or may not, but a teacher, see, here's the thing about a teacher. This is why people pay me. They don't understand it. There's one thing, which is there has to be an equal exchange of energy. If I'm gonna give you something you want, you have to pay me. That's the exchange of energy. One of it is that's how people survive. One of it is that you have to give a message to the universe that something is important to you. And when you make the universe aware that something is important to you, then you will value it. You know, if you don't pay for things, then you don't value them, and especially when it comes to instruction. So there has to be something. That's why you're always giving tobacco, or you're, you know, slaughtering a lamb, or you're doing something in order to work with a teacher. The reason why people pay me is to protect them from my agendas. So, you know, for instance, I won't get emotionally involved or become friends or, you know, date anybody that is like an apprentice, because I have a contract with them. They're paying me on a monthly basis, and my job is to be without agenda. But if I start dating one of them, or if I become friends with one of them, then I have an agenda. I want them to like me. I want something from them. I can't give them the truth. So when somebody pays me, they're paying me to not have an agenda. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for my time, and then to be without agenda, so that my only job is to listen and tell you the truth. That's why, you know, that's what teachers are for. That's why you need them. So, you know, again, how do you know? You know, how can you become aware of something that you're unconscious about? You have to either be lucky enough to hear when people tell you, or you have to have somebody that you trust who will want to work with you and help you with that. And that's one of the things that I do. Okay, so what happens when we die? I don't know if we talked about that. That's a huge thing. What happens when you die is, it's huge. Short answer is, you will go to one of two places. You will go to the underworld, which is a place of healing and regeneration. If you are filled with fear and guilt, and you have a lot of self-hatred, then you may create a hell, a place of punishment. The goddess of the underworld will let you do that. That's an extreme case. If you have unresolved issues, like you know, you died and you didn't, you know, and this is why I'm here. I've had who knows how many hundreds or thousands of lifetimes. I haven't achieved all the things that my soul wants to achieve, so I keep coming back. And in the process, we have unfulfilled desires. Your unfulfilled desires will bring you back into a body when you want to. But the difference is, when you're dead, when you're a spirit, and after you've gone through the regeneration process of looking at your unresolved issues, you're going to go, I want to go back. I really want to go back, and I want to fulfill that. I want to experience that. It's not about getting it right. It's not about becoming enlightened. It's not about becoming perfected. It's about having fun. Your soul wants to have fun. And so when there's a level of the game, which is what this is, that you haven't reached, you will say, I want to go back. The other place is that you will go to one of the higher realms. My ancestors called it Valhalla. You can call it whatever you want. But it means that when you have achieved all the desires that your soul wants, then you won't care whether you come back or not. If you're listening to me and you're saying, I don't ever want to come back, you are guaranteed to be reincarnated. But those who can honestly say, you know what, I've gotten everything I want out of this life. And I lived it fearlessly, and because that's what you have to do. You have to live it fearlessly. When you live life fearlessly, you'll achieve all your desires at some point, and then you won't have to come back, and you'll move on to another level of existence, and maybe you'll become an elf, an ascended master. Maybe you'll become a warrior for Odin and help fight negativity. Who knows what? So that's, in a short answer, what happens when we die. The Catholic Church did not create hell or Hades. Hell is the Germanic word for the underworld. The Christians hijacked the word and used it for eternal punishment. The Catholic Church hasn't created anything. No, they haven't done any thought magic to create. If you go to a place of punishment, it's because you want to punish yourself. And when you're done punishing yourself, then the helpful beings in the underworld will say, okay, you ready to move on now? Okay, let's look at how you can be happier. Okay, I'm looking for the questions here. So somebody's... okay, so again, I appreciate people wanting to communicate with me and with each other, but all I really want to do is look at the questions. My question is, Cosmo Joe, is in the Nordic tradition, is there any stories of resurrection of the dead? You mean like physically resurrecting, like coming out of the grave like Jesus? I'm not aware of any. Doesn't mean it's not there. I'm not an absolute expert in it, but the Taoists talk about being able to do that, being able to bury yourself and resurrect yourself. But I'm not aware of anything in the Nordic tradition, but I could be wrong. I don't know every single story out there. That's not. I'm not a lore master. There's a lot of people that know more than I do. Okay, could physical pain be a resistance to transition? Absolutely, 100% yes, without a doubt. Speaking of pain, this chair is so uncomfortable. Oh my God. God, I'm gonna have to now. I guess I've manifested. I have to go get a massage tomorrow. Whoops, I lost something. Could physical pain be a resistance to transition? Yes. Go and look online for a thing called TMS. It's tension myositis syndrome. Look for a doctor named, I don't have my books in front of me. I can't remember his name. Anyway, just look for TMS. But yes, basically a lot of pain issues, a lot of pain syndromes, and a lot of even other diseases can be, according to some, can be traced back to unresolved emotional issues, which, here's the theory behind TMS, which I'm currently experiencing. A lot of, phantom pains in the muscles, pains in the hands and neck pain and back spasms and all that kind of stuff. What happens is this: you have an emotion that is intolerable, and it's an emotion that's connected to rage, and it's on an unconscious level. Now, TMS can be something really, seemingly really, superficial, like somebody hates mowing the lawn, and they hate having to mow the lawn so much that they end up creating back problems so that they can say, we have to hire somebody, I can't mow the lawn. And then what ends up happening is that you find out when the guy looks into his unconscious, I'll talk about myself because this was something that happened to me when I was married, whenever it was, a long time ago, and I was living in Idaho, and I actually had to mow a lawn. Oh my God, what a waste of, why? Mowing lawns, oh my God. Because I used to watch my dad. I used to watch my dad work, 5 days a week, and then he'd come home on the weekend and he'd spend an hour fixing the lawnmower and pouring the thing in the oil, and then he'd be out there mowing the lawn and picking the stuff up and carrying it. And I would think to myself, why is he wasting all that time? Why do we even have these stupid things? So I've got this thing in my mind about lawns, and then I married a woman who wanted me to mow her lawns, and so I had some anger about that. And the anger was feeling, on a conscious level, it's kind of ridiculous, but unconsciously, the unconscious is not rational. So on an unconscious level, I felt like I was being controlled, and it infuriated me that I had to go mow the lawn. And so what would happen is because I was not comfortable, again, on an unconscious level, I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't comfortable with the idea of being furious with my wife over mowing the lawn. I pushed it down into my unconscious, and my mind said, you know what, we've got to keep this rage from getting to his conscious mind because he can't tolerate it. He doesn't want to. So what the body does is it shuts down the flow of blood to muscles and nerves, and then the muscles and nerves get, lactic acid buildup, and then boom, it goes into spasm. People who have these spasms where it's not related to anything structural. This is what it is. There's some, and the same thing, I'll say the same thing about fibromyalgia and other kinds of pain issues. The ones where the doctors say, we don't know what causes it. Like, I love the commercials, you know, for fibromyalgia. Fibromyalgia is pain in the nerve tissue, which is caused by some kind of pain in the nerve tissue. I mean, they don't even know what causes it. They just know that stress, and so, but the thing about stress is stress doesn't do it. What's doing it is the self-directed rage. So when we're rageful and we can't express that rage to whatever it is or whomever we're rageful at, we feel guilty, we turn it inward and we get rageful at ourselves. So every time the rage comes up, we beat ourselves up. We say, stop feeling like that, stop feeling like that. That gets stuck in the body and creates pain, it creates disease. So the short answer is yes. In any case, look up TMS, tension myositis syndrome. That will explain a lot about it. I can see there's a lot of new people here. So people who are new to my channel, my suggestion is please watch my channel. Please binge watch the playlists. It will answer most of your questions. You'll have an idea of who I am and what it is that I stand for and what I teach. Having said that, welcome to the channel, and I welcome all of your questions. If I can, I'll answer them. Okay, so what are your thoughts, Eric Schmunzeler? I hope I said that right. What are your thoughts on Western ceremonial magic? I am not an expert on Western ceremonial magic. I have looked into it. There's another guy, I forget his name. I wish I had my books in front of me. They're at the other place. I'm not an expert in Western ceremonial magic. I do believe that it's powerful, and I do believe that it can be extremely powerful and extremely effective. Having said that, there's one thing about it that I personally have a problem with, and that's all of the Christian, you know, the Christian angels and the Jesus, and even though it's not Christian, all the Christianized names, it's hard for me to get past that. I have a real problem with Christianity. My main beef with modern Western practices, which includes Western ceremonial magic. By modern, I mean, you know, 2,000 years or later. You know, anything, you know, that goes before the Roman conquest, I like. If you've read my books, you know I use this phrase that says it's a practice that has an unbroken connection into prehistory. Those are the practices that I'm interested in. And that's why I've got a lot of experience with Taoist magic. I've got a lot of experience working with my African shaman teachers, because these are practices that are uninterrupted. Hindu magic, Vedic mantra, all of that. These are practices that go back uninterrupted into prehistory. In Europe, once you have the Romans come in, and then once they bring in Christianity, and then then we have all this mishmash of, Christianized this and Islamic this and Kabbalah, and it's a mishmash of stuff, and it's not representative of something that goes back to an original shamanic practice. So now, having said that it works, I do know that it works. It's not that it doesn't work. I can feel the difference. When I've tried that and I compare it to the feelings that come, like if anybody wants to learn spirit fighting from me at some point and they come out and are willing to go through that, you'll know immediately what I'm talking about. If you do things like some of the practices that I have, and you feel the immediate power that comes from, you'll know what I'm talking about. My experience with some of the Western magical stuff is it takes a lot of, let me use chaos magic as an example. Chaos magic works, but it takes a lot of effort, because chaos magic, as my understanding, and I have limited understanding, so I could be wrong, chaos magic has this assumption, and remember, everything is built on assumptions. So the assumption of chaos magic is that symbols are empty and without meaning unless you load it with your intention. Now this has come into modern, a lot of modern rune magic, which I don't teach. I teach a different style of rune magic than a lot of rune masters out there. There are a lot of rune masters who will tell you that the symbols of the runes are don't have any power in and of themselves, but we all agree because we all have this tradition, so we load them with this one meaning, and that's what gives them the power. There's so much work involved in that. That's a lot of work. There is stuff that exists in the fabric of the universe that, you know, the difference between that and, you know, what a shaman or a rishi does. Rishi means seer. Is somebody, you know, a lot of the mantras that really work come from rishis who heard these sounds already formulating the universe. And they just pulled them out of the existing framework of the universe and started using them to create and change reality. That's the difference. My experience of a lot of Western ceremonial magic is that even though it's very powerful, it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of intellectualizing. So that's one of the reasons why I don't do it. The other reason is that it has a strong, you know, it borrows a lot from Christian and Hebrew and Islamic stuff, and it doesn't have that same feel to me. So I hope I don't piss anybody off, but, you know, that's my take on it. TMS can be considered a psychosomatic condition. Psychosomatic, we need to be clear about what that means. Psychosomatic means that it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So the difference between something purely imagined, like somebody who is, again, somebody who's a germaphobe and afraid everything is going to cause, you know, that kind of psychosomatic, or somebody thinks themselves into being sick, or thinks themselves, you know, like I did that as a kid. I thought I was drinking some, you know, wine or something, and there wasn't any alcohol in it, and I convinced myself I was drunk. I wasn't. There was nothing going on. It was purely psychosomatic, meaning it was all in my head. Psychosomatic means that something can be very real, but it has its origins in the emotional, in the psyche. So we have to make the difference here. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. Somebody who has back spasms, or somebody who has fibromyalgia, they have a real physical disease that you can go in and measure. There are things going on there. It's a real problem, but its genesis is in the emotions. It's not coming from some physical syndrome or some bacteria or some virus or something like that. So we have to make that clear. Yes, it is psychosomatic, but I want to be clear what that means. All right, so let's see what else. Somebody sent a message that it won't show me, so it must mean there's some kind of spam there. I don't know who they are. You say they stole most from the Druids. I don't know who they are. But I would disagree with that. The Druid tradition, there is a modern Druid tradition, which I have a lot of respect for. But if you ask a real Druid, they will tell you, we don't know what the real Druids believed. We're doing our best to reconstruct it, but we don't know. So I don't know who they are, but I don't think they stole from the Druids. Question, Cosmo Joe. Blockage, broken chest, leading to about 2 weeks of euphoria, pleasure in body, but now my body feels tight, thick, resistant to practice. Is this normal? I have no idea. I would have to talk with you and find out what caused all that. There's so many things that could cause that. I would need to talk to you first. Yeah, should I push through or back off? I don't have enough information. We'd have to talk for me to know what was going on. Do I cover sigils in the Thunder Wizard path? I don't do like bind runes. Not that I have anything against them. I know that there was a real science behind that. And I actually have apprentices who are better at that than I am. So I deal with runes, but I really like dealing with the basics of the runes. And in my 3 books about runes, you know, you'll see about that. But I definitely believe in sigils. Absolutely. This is a sigil, you know. We can call this a sigil. You know, this is A.S. Yalmer pendant that one of my previous apprentices made for me with the runes on it. And all of it has meaning. This is definitely a sigil. So, but you know, in terms of some of the really deep sigils, I haven't gotten to that point yet, and I don't find the need to do that yet. Okay. Okay, all right. I'm not seeing any more questions here, so let's do some ads. I'm starting to get tired, but I'll keep going if there are more questions. But let's do some ads. And again, these are the best way to get the most out of the practice with me, is to go to these web addresses and get this stuff and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, yeah, I'm starting to fade here. Okay, I'm back. Let's see if there are any questions. I do have a last minute thing that I want to share with you. Okay, so I don't see any questions here. All right, so let's get back to the point of it all for me that I want to share with you guys. The point of it all for me is I am a very ambitious wizard. You've heard me, when people come and they'll ask about certain things, like they'll ask about being able to, people want to know about levitation, they want to be psychic, they want to be this, they want to be that, and I have experimented with a lot of those things. I've shared about some, I think in the book, one of the Sleipnir books, not Mounting Sleipnir, but the other Sleipnir book that I wrote, I talk about my experience with spirit fighting and some of the things that happened. And I lived through a period where I had a lot of power in my hands. I had a lot of power in my hands, and I could do all kinds of crazy things. I could do things like, just touch somebody and they'd fall to the ground and cry, or I'd be able to decide how I want somebody to feel, and I would touch them, and then they would feel something. I'll give you an example of one thing that happened. And this is having to do with being in that space of the void, feeling like you're being pulled apart. So what I want to share with you is that when I had all this power, I was in one of those places, and it was very uncomfortable. My teacher used to say this. My teacher would talk about, and he would do things to us and throw energy into us and do all kinds of crazy things. And he would say, my practice is shifting. I'm practicing, and now I'm starting to shift towards what they would call the fourth set, which is to die, have a vision, and then you resurrecting, and you have all kinds of power. Whether he got to that point, I don't know, but his teacher did. In any case, you go through these, you keep practicing and pushing, and you go through these levels, and the more power you get, you have to go through these kinds of death experiences where you feel like you're dying. And I remember feeling like that, where I didn't belong and in this world, and I lived in the middle of the city, very similar to where I'm at now. And I'd walk around and I'd see people, and they were just kind of like these, and I must have looked like a zombie, because I was just kind of looking at things kind of weird, because I could see through everything. And I was very dangerous physically. I never used it. I've never used my powers on anybody. I've never beat anybody up, or I just refused to get into any physical confrontations. But, I had this power where I knew I could just take everybody out. And it doesn't matter how big or small, I could chop them to pieces and do all kinds of weird things to them. So I'm at this event, and there is this woman there, and she, how some people, when they like you, they give you a hard time. You know how guys do this, like little kids, they'll punch each other. If they like somebody, they'll punch them in the arm, you know. And she would always have something to say, and it was always kind of negative, but I was so raw because I was in this state of the void, and I had so much power flowing through me that I was constantly in this state of the void. And you know, if she said something that was meant to be a joke but was kind of a, you know, kind of a cutting jab at me, I really felt it. And so I came in and I saw her, and she said something, and I stopped her and I said, you know, without upset, I just said, why do you do that? And she said, I don't know, maybe it was because when I was a kid, my dad, and then a weird thing happened. I saw myself take my left hand, you can't see it, take my left hand and put it on her heart. I wasn't consciously doing this, but my hand went to her heart, and then I heard myself say, it's okay, you can trust me, I'm safe. And I wasn't aware that I was doing it, and as soon as I did that, she started talking, and then she fell to the floor and started weeping. And first she said, oh my God, I'm going to cry. And then she fell to the floor and started weeping, and she wailed for like 3 seconds, and then stopped, and then looked at me, and she said, what the hell did you do to me? And I said, I have no idea. I didn't know what had happened. But I was in that state of the void that you saw. The interaction was that, you know, what I ended up doing was that I was mirroring to her just by touching her. And she said she could feel the energy come because I touched her. Did I touch her hand? Or wherever it is I touch her, she could feel this energy coming. And then when it got to her, wherever her emotions are, that's when she felt it. She said, what the hell did you do to me? I said, I have no idea. But it's what was happening is that I was in that state of the void, and obviously I was reflecting back to her what her comments were doing to me. And so she had this experience to see all that and experience it. But the point is that to have that kind of power, you've got to be in that state of emptiness, that state of being pulled apart. This is the difference between walking the path of the true shaman, maybe not the true shaman, walking the path of the transformational shaman, walking the path of the wizard, and doing the happy love and light thing. The happy love and light thing there, listen, I can tell you, you know, having worked with some cancer patients, and having a partner who died of cancer, is that cancer victims put a big smile on their face. And one of the things they don't do is they don't deal with their painful, uncomfortable feelings, their anger, their shame, their fear, their sadness, their misery. They don't deal with it. They just push it down, and they just put a big smile on their face. So you want to walk this spiritual path. You want to be a spiritual master. You want to be this, that, or the other thing. Then you're going to have to be willing to go into the void. The practices that I teach can be very helpful for that. Celestial Qigong is, in my estimation, probably the best way to do it. You can do it. Celestial Qigong is very safe. I specifically watered it down so that it could be taught to anybody through video, and you can take it out of sequence, and you can do each exercise on its own. But there are still people who are listening to me, probably, who are doing it, and you know what I'm talking about, that it feels like it's tearing you apart. But what's really happening is that you're clearing out space on your hard drive, your unconscious, and you're getting rid of limitations, which are your beliefs. I am this, I am that. I can do this, I can't do that. These kinds of limitations, you're getting rid of those, so that then you will have more energy. And the energy is here. You know, I was talking about my understanding of Western magic and some of the limitations in my limited understanding. But the point is that we don't need to think our way into this. The energy is there. We can plug into that infinity at any point in time. And if our unconscious is clear, we will be able to manifest that energy in all kinds of ways. Whether it's levitation or doing this or achieving immortality or being a healer, or my thing is I just want to be happy. I am happy, you know, even though I'm going through all this pain. I want to have fun. I want to be able to intend my life. I want to be healthy. There's a lot of wizards, and I know some of them who aren't very healthy, and they're not very happy, but they have a lot of power. I want it all. I want to have the power, and I want to be, and I want the health, and I want the fun and the happiness. So anyway, I battled again. I don't know what I said. There might have been some questions since then, but let's see. Question, Lindsay Rogers. Does Odin live in the fortress of the gods? Odin's throne is in the fortress of the gods, but Odin is one of the few beings in the universe who can travel to all 9 realms. So while Odin may rule from there, he goes everywhere. Sleipnir has 8 legs, right? And what do you think whoops, I don't want that. That's not what I want. Sorry, let me get rid of that. Sleipnir has 8 legs. And what do you believe this is right here? The 8 directions, the thunder wheel, is Odin's horse. So if you want to be able to travel to all of the 9 realms, we're already in one right now, Midgard, then you can also mount Sleipnir, which is use the 8 directions. That's what the title of the book, Mounting Sleipnir, means. It means to use the thunder wheel. So there's that. All right, so let's see. What else is there? Thank you for that question, Lindsay. What are your thoughts on Trump? You know, you don't really want me to go there. You don't really want me to go there. I'm going to offend somebody no matter what I say, so who cares? Let's just let the politicians do what they do. Any advice on becoming psychic? I wouldn't waste time worrying about it. If you are meant to be psychic, you will. Here's the thing about powers. This includes psychic powers, healing powers, martial powers. Superpowers are the result of unresolved karma. So if somebody is a healer, they can't take credit for being able to touch people and heal them, because that means that all that's happened is that in a past life, you were harmful to people. And so in this life, you are balancing that. So all the people that come to you are very likely somebody who has been harmed by you in a previous life. And so the healing that you're doing is you're just really giving back the energy that you took. So that, having said that, you shouldn't avoid them. If you do the practice, if you do energy work, if you do celestial qigong, or you do meditation or yoga or any kind of energy work that will open up the chakras and the meridians, you will have some kind of power come to you, which will give you an opportunity to offset some negative karma. So the point is, that's why, you know, people who have powers or spiritual healers or teachers or whomever, they can't take credit for it, because all they're doing is they're just balancing out something that they did. Now, you know, there's a lot of people, I got to be honest with you, half the time when I'm doing something, or when I'm doing an exercise, or when I'm working with somebody, half the time I don't even know what I'm doing. It doesn't seem like a lot. They have this huge experience. You said this, or you did that, or you gave me that, or I did this one exercise you gave me, and oh my God. All that's happening is that I am the symbol through which they are balancing their own karma. Now, we probably have some kind of a past life, something or other, and I am simply either, you know, I agreed to do this for you, or I have a debt that I have to give back to you through the teaching, something like that. It's always like that. You know, you can't take credit for it. Half the time that stuff happens through me, I have no idea, like just the experience I talked about before. She asked, what did you do? I said, I had no idea. Now, looking back on it, yeah, I had all this energy. I was doing all this stuff. But the truth of the matter is that I must have had a contract with her soul. And I must have said, you know, in the spirit realm, I must have said, or she may have come to me and said, hey, I need some help. Will you do this for me? You know, and that whole thing was aligned so that I could give her that. But that's all it is. I can't take any credit for it because I can't do that to everybody. I can't just walk up to everybody and do that. See what I mean? So if you want to be psychic, great, but why? Why bother? Just be who you are. Go do the practices. Go meditate. Go do the Qigong. Go do the whatever it is, and whatever happens, happens. You know, just enjoy it. Looking for the questions. So, Russo Van Royen asks, so in relation to with this void state of being, does the blue flame work with it? I don't know what the blue flame is. I've never heard of that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I mean, I don't know anything about it. So this is, you know, you guys come to me with these phrases you've picked up from somebody or some other teaching. How do you know I even know who those people are or that everybody has that experience? I don't know what a blue flame is, so I have no idea. Perhaps it does, perhaps it doesn't. I can't answer that. Is Odin connected to Ahaya? I don't know who that is. Can't answer that question either. So, all right, guys, my back hurts. This chair is killing me. I'm tired, and I feel like I did not convey what I wanted to convey. So hopefully this was a good session for you. So I don't have anything to say other than you know, the word that keeps coming up for me is listen. There, more often than not, when I sit and I ask the universe, you know, I say, how do I deal with this? 95% of the time, the answer says, listen. So in connection to this, to be able to work through, you know, it's great if you're, to be able to do a practice like spirit fighting or celestial qigong that will put you into the void so that you can, and it's what's great about that is you know what you're doing and you know why you're getting there, and when you get there you have an understanding. When you have life things like what's happened with me losing my fiance and all the pain that I'm going through, or if you're walking around with an unresolved wound, you know, you've been a wounded person emotionally for most of your life, then it's hard to know what the payoff is, but there's always a payoff. Nothing happens by chance, and nothing happens without your deliberate decision on some level, even if you're not aware of it. So the great thing about the pain, the great thing about the difficulty is that it is not only an opportunity. It's not like it's an opportunity. It is a huge opportunity. It's the most powerful kind of opportunity to really go into that place of emptiness and gain power and reconstruct yourself. So ask yourself that. Ask yourself, you know, what if you could snap your fingers and reconstruct yourself? And I'm not talking about I'd like to be 20 feet tall and be the Hulk, or, you know, I'm talking about really, what if you could just snap your fingers and recreate what you wanted to be? If you could get rid of the limitations on who and what you were, what would that look like? And fantasize about that, even if that's completely unrealistic. I made the joke about, you know, the Hulk because that's my thing. I wish I could get, but that's coming out of my fear and my desire to, you know, all that. That's not what my soul wants. That's just an ego-based thing. So ask yourself that, you know, what is it that you really want? And, you know, if I'm sitting here thinking right, you know, listening to myself right now, the kind of stuff that I'd like to do with this path, if I were to get my fear and my ego out of the way, it would be earth-shattering. You know, it would be changed, really dynamically, totally change the earth, change society. And that's a scary thought. I would have to allow myself to really, maybe that's what all this is. You know, that may be the gift that Lisa gave to me. Because I can tell you, listen, I can tell you the kind of person that I am, I've lived my whole life completely self-sufficient, and I've never given myself away to anybody. I've never seen the reason for it. I've enjoyed relationships, but I've never had that complete union of self where you are really dependent upon that. You know, there's a phrase that one of my teachers uses, which is, I need you because I love you, and I love you because I need you. Right? The second one is the one you don't want. I love you because I need you, meaning that you can't stand being alone and you need somebody, you find somebody, and then that helps you love them. And then there's you don't need somebody, and then you meet them, and then real love starts to happen, and then when the real love happens, then the need comes. And he was saying, and he said to me, he's like, this is what you've had. And he said, no, very few people have what you had with Lisa. But for me to be in this place of neediness, I feel like an infant. I am so raw and I'm so sensitive. And the thought, literally the thought of putting things in my car, like my surfboards are over here, putting my surfboards in the car and driving them here and taking the thing and putting that up. Each time I did that, almost every single piece in here that I put in here, I would weep and wail because it was so painful. And I was thinking about it today. It was like this whole idea of being, where I'm reconstructing my unconscious. It's like a baby. A baby has no unconscious yet. That's why they're constantly crying, because they are just these raw nerves and feelings, and they don't have any programming to deal with all the stuff that's coming into them. They don't know who they are yet. That's how I feel. I don't know who I am right now. I don't know who I am without her. I'm going off of old programs, and the universe threw this, literally threw this new place at me, and my income has gone through the roof, and the universe threw that at me. And so I know to look at the signs and go, okay, follow that, instead of do what I want to do, which is stay at my old place and just, never get out of bed. But, even though all this stuff is happening, and even though I'm choosing to follow what the universe is putting in front of me, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm scared to death because I don't know what I'm becoming. And I'm really frightened. And that's not me. That's never been who I am. So I'm trying to show you guys, I'm trying to let all the guards down and just be real with you, and not just be real with you so that you can, see another person being real, but so that you can understand that I understand that this is happening right now, so that I can share this with you, so I can give you an example of what it's like to allow yourself to be completely pulled apart. This is the shamanic initiation. Shamans traditionally have visions a lot of times where the gods chop them up into pieces, put them into a vat, stir them up, and then pull them out, and then they're reconstructed. And there's, in traditional shamanic cultures, the shamanic initiation is never pleasant. People go crazy. They die. They physically die. It's never a pleasant experience. But the lesson of that is, the average person who, in traditional society, the average person didn't want power, because they knew in order to have it, you had to go through that. That's why in fairy tales, the wizards live in the woods, and there's a good witch and a bad witch. It doesn't matter. You can have power, but there's this idea that, if you're around the wizard, you got to have respect. You don't know what's going to come out of them. Because our modern understanding is that spirituality is always good, and and now you've got all these gurus who sexually assault their students, who steal from them, because they allow themselves to be seen as something beyond human. Whereas in ancient times we knew that there's a person with power out there in those woods, and there's a human being on the other end of that power. And so you don't go to the wizard unless you really want something, and you come with a gift, because the last thing you want is that person to be on the wrong side of you. See what I mean? There was this understanding that power lives in this zone of this unpredictability, this emptiness, this Ganunga gap that's full of pure potential. And that is, it should be a dangerous place. It should feel dangerous. When you want to go after power, you shouldn't be thinking, oh, I'll just do this and I'll do that and I'll get some power and I'll be, you should think about, wow, do I really want to go through can I handle that? You know, my teacher used to talk about Darth Vader, and he would say, you know, real understanding is that there are Darth Vaders out there. I personally, myself, I know of one. I know of two, if I kind of... These are people who have a lot of power, and they are not emotionally centered, and they're very dangerous people. And so the idea to go after power, you should think twice about it. And you should really ask yourself, is that something I want? And then if it is, then you should find a conscious person to work with. I try to be that, and I hope I can be that for those who desire to learn from me. Having said that, I'm going to go ahead and shut up unless there's any questions. People are asking me a lot of questions about a lot of stuff I know nothing about. What are your thoughts on Mother Asna? I don't know who that is. I don't want to talk about other teachers. If you want to work with me, why don't you watch my videos? I have hundreds of videos. I have how many books? 25 books. How many DVDs do I have? Watch my stuff. Ask me about my stuff. I can answer that. I have no interest in commenting on other teachers, especially ones I don't know anything about. How do we deal with initiation when it comes at us? It's a big question. You need a teacher. Thank you, Thunder Wizard. Hope you get settled in your lovely new home. Thank you, Wilma. Okay, so that's it for me tonight. My back is killing me from sitting on this thing. I'm really tired. I'm going to go to sleep, cry for a little while, and then I'll go to sleep. And I'm going to let us go by us all looking at what Mother Universe has given to me and how lucky I am. So that's it for now, my friends. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
This is the Thunder Wizard's new home. This is his front yard. Heading over here to the left. On a clear day, you can see all the way to Catalina. And over here to the right, empty beach for miles. And then if we go in this direction, see that yellow house right up there, the second level? That is my apartment. I wake up every day, you can look out there, and right in front of me is easily some of the best surfing in Southern California. My new place. This is the Thunder Wizard's new home. This is his front yard.